Chapter 5. A housekeeper led them through a marble foyer and into a sprawling living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a large backyard. The sound of ice clinking in a glass preceded Cal Merrick's entrance. In his early 60s, Cal Merrick had the build of a former athlete gone to seed, broad shoulders supporting an impressive belly, thick arms stretching the fabric of his designer polo shirt. His face was flushed, either from the drink in his hand or from barely contained rage, with heavy jowls that shook when he spoke. Despite his age, his hair remained thick and dark, suspiciously so for a man his age. His eyes, small and sharp, darted between Joe and Matt, immediately assessing and dismissing them. The contempt was evident before he even opened his mouth. "I told that idiot chief of yours I'd talk to you, but don't waste my time," he said, not bothering with introductions. "My boy is dead, and I know exactly who's responsible." Joe cleared his throat. "Mr. Merrick, I'm Detective Foster, and this is Special Agent Barry." "I don't give a damn where he's from," Merrick interrupted, his face darkening to a deeper shade of red. "What I care about is why you're standing in my living room instead of arresting the people who murdered my son." Matt stepped back slightly, giving Joe space to handle the grieving father. Cal Merrick pointed a finger at Joe. "You know who did this. Why are you wasting our time? Get down there and arrest that motherfucker." "Mr. Merrick," Joe started. Merrick, a large, heavy man, stuck his face into Joe's. "You guys have been harassing my son on bullshit charges made by that little whore. Any cop worth a damn would know she's a liar. Now my son's dead. They cut his head off for God's sake. I'll bet that little whore helped her daddy do it." Merrick, Matt decided, was used to intimidating people with his size. Joe remained calm. "If you want us to leave Mr. Merrick, we will. I'll call Chief Wilson now and tell him you refuse to cooperate." "I haven't refused a goddamn thing," Merrick screamed. "Cal, shut up," Cal's wife, Lois, a petite, well-dressed woman, said. Her voice was calm but firm, enough to stop Cal mid-sentence. He turned toward the doorway. Lois Merrick stood there, straight-backed and silent. She wore a simple black outfit, her hair pulled back neatly. Her eyes were red. Cal looked ready to erupt again but remained silent. "Please sit down," Lois Merrick said, gesturing to the leather sofa across from her husband's armchair. "We'll answer all your questions." The steel that had momentarily emerged to quiet her husband had vanished, leaving behind a woman barely holding herself together. "Mrs. Merrick, we can come back later," Joe offered. "No." She shook her head slightly, settling into a chair opposite them. "There is no good time." Matt attached his camera to his shirt and pressed the record button. "Mr. Merrick," he said, "a few seconds ago, you asked why we aren't arresting the people who murdered your son. What people did you mean?" "You know exactly who the fuck I'm talking about," Merrick snarled. Matt didn't respond and did not break eye contact. It was like a stare down at an MMA fight. Merrick looked away, sighed, and said, "Reed McKnight." "The word people implies more than one. Who else?" "That bitch daughter of his. If she was naked in a video, it was because she took her own goddamn clothes off." "Anyone else?" Matt pressed. Merrick shook his head. "When is the last time you saw Raymond?" Joe asked. Cal slammed a fist on the leather recliner in which he sat. "What fucking difference does that make? We didn't kill him." Lois gave him a withering look before turning back to Matt and Joe. "Yesterday at breakfast, with school, football, and his friends, we don't see much of him." "Were all three of you at breakfast?" Lois gave a faint smile and nodded. "It was one of those rare occasions all of us ate together." "Did he mention the Restway Inn?" Joe asked. She shook her head. "Never." "Any idea of what Raymond was doing there?" Lois bit her lip, looked at Cal, and then turned back to Joe. "Not a clue. A party, a girl. He never said anything." "Did you hear from Raymond after breakfast?" Joe asked. "Yesterday before practice, he sent me a text telling me he was heading to practice," Lois said. "What time was that?" "I can tell you exactly," Lois said, stood, and crossed the room to her purse. "It was 7 a.m. She offered her cell phone to Joe, who took it and scanned messages from Raymond. "How about you, sir?" Joe asked. Merrick waved his hands helplessly. "I was working." "So, he has breakfast, heads to school, and texts you before football practice," Matt said. Lois nodded. Ever hear from him again yesterday? Matt asked. She shook her head. Number. But he's a teenage boy. That was not unusual. Is there anybody who might know Raymond's whereabouts at all the times? Joe asked. Lois exchanged glances with Cal and returned to her seat. Matt put her in her 50s, a damn attractive woman who now moved in slow motion as if in a trance. She turned to Joe and said, Barbara Carter, if anyone. Barbara's his girlfriend, she explained. Matt nodded, making a note of the name. Was Raymond acting differently lately? Anything unusual about his behavior or mood? No, Lois said. He was the same Raymond, even with everything going on. Did he seem worried or upset about anything? Joe asked. Cal shook his head. He wasn't worried about anything. Kid had his whole life ahead of him. Football scholarship, everything going for him. Did he mention anyone giving him trouble? Matt continued. No, never mentioned anything like that, Lois said. Joe looked up from his notepad. Was he having any issues at school? With friends? Coaches? Nothing, Cal said. He was popular. Everyone liked him. Teachers, coaches, other kids. Did he have any enemies or conflicts we should know about? Matt asked. Lois shrugged slightly. Just kid stuff, you know? Nothing serious. Nothing that would make someone want to... She trailed off. You'd have to ask his friends about any issues he had with anybody, Cal added. He didn't raise anything like that with us. Was he drinking or using any drugs recently, to your knowledge? Joe asked. Cal shifted in his seat. He drank some. All kids do. He spread his hands, not aware of any drug use. Can you think of anyone who might want to hurt him? Matt asked. Lois shook her head, tears welling in her eyes again. I can't think of anyone who would want to hurt him. Not like this. Did you see or hear from Raymond again yesterday? Matt asked. No, Lois said. Did he come home? I never saw him, Lois said. Were you concerned? Lois shook her head. He was 18. I texted him and never heard back from him. I wasn't pleased about his not answering, but it did not set off any alarm bells. What time was the text? Matt asked. Joe, who still had Lois's phone, answered, 8:05 a.m. Raymond didn't answer because he was already dead, Matt thought to himself. Matt stood. Do you have an objection to me examining Raymond's room while the three of you speak? Of course not, Lois said. Upstairs, and it's the second room to the right. Matt left Joe to continue the interview and climbed the curved staircase to the second floor. The upper hallway was lined with framed photos, Raymond in various football uniforms through the years, formal family portraits, Cal shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. The second door on the right was partially open. Matt pushed it wider and stepped inside. The room looked like a teenage boy's room, bed unmade, clothes strewn about, and an assortment of electronics, including a flat-screen TV and various stereo components. Trophies crowded a shelf above the desk. Golden figures, frozen mid-play, plaques engraved with MVP and state champions. Posters of NFL stars and swimsuit models covered most of the wall space. Matt pulled on a pair of latex gloves and began a systematic search. He opened drawers, checked under the bed, and examined the closet. After 2 minutes, he found a small baggie of marijuana tucked inside a sock in the nightstand. It wasn't much, so he left it in place, making a mental note. On the desk sat an iPad and a PC, both locked and password protected. More work for the techs, he thought. He checked for notebooks or journals but found nothing beyond school assignments and playbooks. The bathroom attached to the bedroom was surprisingly clean. Expensive colognes lined up neatly, high-end hair products arranged on a shelf. The medicine cabinet revealed nothing more interesting than ibuprofen and allergy medication. After 30 minutes of careful searching, Matt headed back downstairs. The tension in the living room had subsided somewhat. Cal sat with a fresh drink in his hand, his face no longer red. Find anything? Cal asked as Matt re-entered the room. A teenager's room, Matt said neutrally. May I have your permission to take the iPad and computer to the lab? Cal looked like he was going to ask a question, but Lois answered before he could speak. Of course you can. Take anything you think might be helpful. Joe closed his notebook and stood. We'll be in touch if we have any more questions. Again, we're very sorry for your loss. 15 minutes later, the evidence properly bagged and tagged. They were back in the car. Joe started the engine but didn't put it in gear right away. What an asshole, he said, shaking his head. He did just lose his son, Matt pointed out. Then he's an asshole who just lost his son. Matt couldn't argue with that. He's used to getting his own way, isn't he? In this town? Absolutely. Joe finally pulled away from the curb. Let's talk to Officer Bernard Swift, the school safety officer. He should be able to give us the layout of the land before we start talking to Raymond's friends. Matt considered this, then shook his head. Let's see what the McKnights say first, he suggested.